Anne was someone who had a huge impact not only on her local community, but all across the world, helping those who were underserved. We were sad to lose Anne last year in a suicide bombing attack in southern Afghanistan while she was on her way to deliver school books to children in an underserved region of the country. But she will always remain a proud alum and a great example for this symposium and our community as to how we can better serve others and bring our community closer together. Here to talk more about Anne and her life is her best friend from college, Liz Minert, and I'll turn it directly over to her.
Thank you. Good evening. So as he had introduced me, my name is Liz, and I was Anne's roommate, sophomore, junior, and senior year of college. I would like to thank the Foreign Affairs Symposium and Hopkins for honoring Anne tonight in such a touching and impactful way. I know she would be so excited to be part of one of Hopkins' greatest legacies. Hopkins is a very special place to many of us, but for me, I am most thankful for the most wonderful, lasting friendships that I have found while I was here. I was very lucky to be part of a very tight-knit group of friends in college that included Anne. And I know we all very much appreciated the outreach and support from the Hopkins and State Department community since her passing. I would like to now share some insight into who Anne was and what made Anne the person that we all loved, particularly during her time at Hopkins and the amazing 9 years that I had the honor of being her close friend. To know her was to love her and to laugh with her. And I hope you come away from this with a better understanding and appreciation for what a stellar human being, best friend, and humanitarian she was. Many of you have heard this past year about Anne's professional accolades and achievements, which are numerous and beyond awe-inspiring for someone who was only 25 years. However, as her college roommate, I can assure all of you that she was a normal college student. She slept under her clean laundry instead of folding it, made pulling all-nighters into an Olympic sport, frequented Uni Mini like any good Hopkins student, enjoyed a good beer, and would blast country music in our apartment, irregardless of the fact that I think all the songs sound exactly the same. From the get-go, she had this knack for anticipating my next move or appearing whenever I needed her the most, and that has only strengthened over the last few years since graduation. Although Anne may not have been the loudest member in our group of friends, her witty jokes made a quick friend and ally to anyone she met, and you knew you were in strong, capable hands whenever she was at the helm. Her quiet, wry sense of humor, patience, and calming demeanor were the products of an incredibly close, loving family, being the second oldest of 4 children, and years of being an exceedingly well-read bookworm on everything from Henry Kissinger to space and meteorology, to bacon recipes, and my personal favorite, Harry Potter. It was what we loved most about her. She was always Anne. As we've all gotten older, I have come to appreciate those who somehow find the time to have it all. It always amazed me that Anne was able to be a successful student and leader in her State Department career, but never once let it interfere with being a good friend to all of us. She and I used to laugh and remark that some of our happiest times were wandering bookstores or exploring DC together, completely content in just having each other's company. She was the friend I could count on to help me sneak brownies into the Air and Space Museum. We even made it work to share her twin bed when I visited her family in Chicago, which is honestly the truest testament to the level of our friendship. Even when we were thousands of miles apart, and many nations apart as well, she always found the time to G-chat or send me an email that would undoubtedly leave me in stitches and missing her terribly. Ultimately, I think our friends would agree that she was the sanest, most dependable friend who provided us support in any storm. After all that has happened, I've reflected on what Anne would want us to focus on and what advice we can take from her incredible life. I've settled on 3 key themes. First, a strong confidence and passion for life, particularly in however you choose to dedicate that life. Anne was so passionate about her work, but in a quiet, unassuming way. She didn't stand on the mountaintops and scream it so everyone could hear. She wasn't that friend who talked politics and only politics. Instead, she preferred talking about her latest meal or upcoming adventure. She never bragged about her work or all of her amazing accomplishments. The Undersecretary's eulogy at her funeral taught me about 10 new things I didn't even know. Secondly, the value of adventure seeking and risk taking. Some people vacation in Hawaii. Anne ate piranhas and wore a boa constrictor, went skydiving in Arizona, ran a marathon called Man vs. Horse because you could either run on foot or ride your horse, biked across the US with the Hopkins 4K, then across Western Australia, and then a final trek from the Black Sea to the Red Sea. She was never afraid to explore the unknown and always seized the opportunity to learn something new. And those are the two important lessons I have taken to heart on a recent Anne-inspired trip I made to South Africa. She was the fearless Indiana Jones turned diplomat amongst us, and we loved every minute we got to live vicariously through her. The third and final theme was the importance of patience and faith. Anne's dream had always been to be in the Foreign Service. She applied the winter of our senior year and went through the incredibly rigorous application process. Exams, team-based interviews, panel interviews. I remember her coming home into the apartment after her interviews, both completely exhausted, but bouncing off the walls with excitement at the same time. This is what she was meant to do, and she was sure of it. But then she didn't hear from them for a few months, just an email here and there. So we graduated, she moved home, and worked for a tax attorney's office. She was there for a few months, and then decided she had had enough of that. No offense to any tax attorneys in the audience. With her strong convictions and rational decision-making, she made up her mind, and she went with it. However, the man upstairs clearly had other plans for Anne, and just 2 weeks after resigning, right before New Year's Eve, Anne got the email that changed the rest of her life, and she was accepted into the Foreign Service. She was patient, she held out for what she really wanted, and was rewarded with the most amazing 3 years in her dream job as a Foreign Service officer. Anne would appreciate our sadness and our tears, but she would mostly want us to use this as an impetus to go out and seize the day. Whether it's that extra slice of pizza, that extra mile, that trip you haven't booked yet, or that seemingly out-of-reach dream job or reach school. No fear, no hesitation. She would want us to commit and make that leap of faith. Whenever I find myself in a moment of doubt, I think of her crooked smirk and her raised eyebrow, but most importantly, the subsequent, "Go for it, Lizzo." And I know that she was with me and will always be there to catch me when I fall. Anne's friendships and impact spanned across generations, oceans, land barriers, and widely different cultures. So seeing the experience and the responses over the past year from the so many lives that she touched in some way came as no surprise to those of us that knew her well. But the efforts and endeavors to continue her legacy have truly been heartwarming. The void left by Anne is immeasurable, but has brought us all a sense of peace to know that Anne and her legacy will continue to change the world through her scholarship and through this annual award with the Foreign Affairs Symposium. Thank you for giving us the chance to share the light and laughter that Anne brought to our lives. To help us continue Anne's legacy, Dylan Etzel will now provide some information about Anne's Memorial Fund. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Hello, my name is Dylan Etzel, class of 2017, FAS staff member. I am fortunate enough to be here at Hopkins pursuing goals of a career in diplomatic solutions to the resource crises unfolding on the global stage. Anne, through her work in foreign service, is a role model to me. Anne not only recognized the desire of Afghani children to obtain an education, but also that it takes the utmost determination to complete this task. I see this level of determination around me every day on campus here. Unfortunately, not every aspiring diplomat can afford an education. Donating to the Anne Smedinghoff Memorial Fund will help students make their goals of international betterment a reality. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Szymanski. I'm one of the current executive directors of Foreign Affairs Symposium. First, I'd just like to start out by just giving a shout out to the 2013 executive directors. This event wouldn't be happening, and we would not have been connected with the Smedinghoff family if it hadn't been for them. In this regard, we decided to create an award this year to honor Anne's legacy. So in Anne's memory, we at Foreign Affairs Symposium have decided to create the Anne Smedinghoff Award to recognize one person annually for his or her work in diplomacy and peace building. We especially focus on the protection and expansion of basic rights, such as education and health, due to the nature of Anne's work. The award itself represents the drive and passion of these great individuals who, even in the midst of disarray, are able to enact remarkable transformations that inspire onlookers around the world. And now to talk about the recipient of tonight's event, I welcome Rosalind Grant.
Thank you. Ms. Shabana Basij-Rasikh is the inaugural recipient of the Anne Smedinghoff Memorial Award. Ms. Basij-Rasikh was born and raised in Kabul, Afghanistan, under the reign of the Taliban. During that time, she completed her secondary education largely in secret. After finishing high school in Wisconsin through a competitive youth exchange studies program sponsored by the U.S. State Department, Shabana attended Middlebury College, graduating magna cum laude in international studies and women and gender studies. She went on to study Arabic and Islamic law at Alexandria University in Egypt. During college, Shabana founded HELA, a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering Afghan women through education. She was the recipient of the Vermont Campus Compact 2011 Kunin Public Award for Outstanding Public Service, Effective Leadership, and Community Building. After graduation, she co-founded SOLA, the School of Leadership Afghanistan, a nonprofit that helps exceptional young Afghan women access education across the globe. At this time, it is my sincerest honor to welcome Mr. and Mrs. Smedinghoff to the stage to present the first annual Anne Smedinghoff Award.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you.
I'd like to begin by thanking the Foreign Affairs Symposium for doing this memorial for our daughter Anne and for setting up the Anne Smedinghoff Award. We really appreciate what they've done. Anne's time here was a time she really treasured. She really learned a lot here, and it really helped form her and the work that she did. When Anne was in Kabul, a lot of the work that she did involved dealing with helping to improve the education system in Afghanistan and with working with women and women's groups to improve their situation in Afghanistan as well. And as Nikhil mentioned earlier, it was on a trip actually to deliver books to a school when she was killed by a suicide bomber. So I think it's really fitting that the first recipient of the Anne Smedinghoff Award is Shabana, as she really has done so much and has lived through so much in Afghanistan in terms of the problems that exist there brought about by the Taliban and other situations. So I'd like to call Shabana up to the stage, and we'd like to present Shabana with the Anne Smedinghoff Award. Shabana, for all you've done and for all you are continuing to do, please accept this award on behalf of the Foreign Affairs Symposium and on behalf of our family. Thank you.
I'm so very honored this evening. I'm also filled with this really mixed emotions. I'm roughly Anne's age. I'm 24. And for me, ever since what happened to Anne and recently learning about her life and the reaction to her passing has been I really didn't have even the right words to associate with that, but having this opportunity to meet her family in person is really a great honor. I have met a lot of people in Afghanistan who would have wished to meet you in person, to share their feelings and their condolences for your loss. Let me tell you a little bit about Afghanistan and my experience growing up in Afghanistan to give you a sense of the importance of Anne's work and her passion. I grew up in Afghanistan under the Taliban regime from 1996 to 2001. And as you all know, they made it illegal for girls to receive an education. So for years and years under that regime, more than half of the population of Afghanistan lived through a regime that denied people access to the most basic human rights, which is receiving an education. I was extremely fortunate. I have amazing parents. My parents believe in education so deeply. They took the risk to send me and my sisters to secret school. We walked a long way each day, going to somebody's house, pretending to be a family member, going in and out of their home, so that we could receive an education. And every single day, my parents knew that the possibility of us not returning home alive was real. That if we were caught by the Taliban receiving an education, we could be killed, and our teachers could be killed, and our parents could be punished. For my parents and my older siblings who had lived in a different regime before the Taliban, they knew it was extremely unfair. But for my generation of people, we grew up thinking that was a normal way of life until 9/11 happened and the Taliban were kicked out of Afghanistan. And in 2002, I attended a school for the very first time. And only then I realized how unfair it was growing up under the Taliban regime. I am standing here as a small minority of very, very privileged Afghan women. Not necessarily in an economic sense, but in the kinds of opportunities that I've had in life so far. I came to the US as a high school exchange student for 1 year. And then after that, I went to a college in the US where I learned on the very first day of orientation that only 2% of Americans have access to such quality of education, even in this country. What that meant to me as an Afghan woman, I was extremely overwhelmed. I came from a country where illiteracy rate was extremely high, especially for women. More than 90% of women in rural areas in Afghanistan, in a place where Anne was delivering books, don't have access to education. They're illiterate. And illiteracy rate for women and men in general in Afghanistan is very high. It's as a result of more than 30 years of continuous war in Afghanistan. The fact that as an Afghan woman, I have a college degree puts me into a shockingly low percentage of women from Afghanistan, 6% of women who have a college degree. As I went through college in a place like Middlebury, every day I was surrounded by people where I smelled and sensed privilege. And I knew that I was participating in that life. I was one of those people who had the access to that kind of education and life. And having, being from Afghanistan and studying in the US, I was part of these two very different worlds that had very little in common. I would go home during summer looking at very obvious struggles and lack of opportunities. And then I would come to the US and all these opportunities and options were available to me. There were times where often I wondered why I was the one who had access to this education. What if I was born in a different family? Why me? Why did I deserve to be so lucky to have access to this education? And now that I do have this access, what do I do next? And it was really all of this sense of moral obligation as an Afghan woman, being on this privileged side of the society, that compelled me to start this school, SOLA. The word SOLA means peace in Pashto language. And it's the School of Leadership Afghanistan, the first boarding school for girls in Afghanistan. It's very small, but the reason I started this school is because our educational system in Afghanistan is so outdated. Our students in Afghanistan, those who are lucky enough to be able to go to school, they go to school only learning how to memorize. In a country that has gone through years and years of war, that has been destroyed by war, we need people from Afghanistan who can think critically and creatively and come up with creative solutions to the problems in Afghanistan. And for that, our education system does not prepare people. So this is really why I have started the school. As I was going through college, initially I really wanted to become a doctor, and learning more about the lack of proper justice system in Afghanistan, especially for women, I wanted to become a lawyer. And then looking at any of these needs in Afghanistan, I realized that the one thing that they all shared in common was this lack of education at the really foundation of it. And so this is really why I started the school. Today, we have 35 students, and in the past 5 years, we have helped 36 students receive a scholarship to 34 educational institutions in 5 different countries, and the scholarship money that we've been able to advocate for them amounts to $6.8 million. For me, the school is not just about having a space and a classroom that allows these students to be able to think critically and creatively, but it's also about a place where we are able to deal with our social problems. Afghanistan is a country that where ethnic tension is really prevalent. So many years of civil war and all sorts of war has unfortunately created so many tension among these different ethnic groups who speak different languages. And so at SOLA, our students take the pledge to respect, accept, appreciate, and promote the different qualities that everybody brings to the community. And for me, as an Afghan woman, I see hope in Afghanistan through these young people who study there. In the past 13 years alone, there have been a lot of progress in Afghanistan. Things that you don't hear about here in the US. 13 years ago, we didn't even have one TV station. Today, there are more than 75 privately owned TV channels in Afghanistan. 13 years ago, very few girls were able to attend school, and that too in secret. But today, there are millions of girls across the country who are able to attend school. We have one of the best freedom of press in the region. In fact, our freedom of press was ranked #1 in the region, better than our neighboring countries. And a lot of these things are the kinds of things you don't hear about. And much of this has been achieved because of people like Anne, who've risked their lives, who've gone out of their comfort zone and accepted the risk to work alongside Afghan people. I really don't know what to say to you, but for a lot of people in Afghanistan, and definitely those who've met someone like Anne, will always remember her and respect for what she did during her time in Afghanistan. In the US, there's this misunderstanding that people in Afghanistan don't want Americans in Afghanistan. But just before our elections, President Karzai held a traditional gathering of people asking for opinions from people across Afghanistan whether or not he should sign the bilateral security agreement. And to his surprise and to the surprise of many people in the international community, especially the American public, unanimously all the elders across Afghanistan asked President Karzai to sign the bilateral security agreement. Yes, we do have the problem of Taliban in Afghanistan. But what you also don't know is that they are the most hated people in Afghanistan. Perhaps less than 5% of people in Afghanistan support a group like the Taliban. They used to be a group that were driven by ideology. But today, those who join the Taliban are those who are forced by poverty or who are thugs. And they are hated even in the most conservative villages and areas in Afghanistan. No one likes to face roadside bombs and bomb blasts in their village and near their home every single day. So what Anne did in Afghanistan and the sacrifice you and your family have made is helping a lot of people in Afghanistan today. Those who've been deprived of opportunities for years and years. And on the other side, the good news is that in Afghanistan, because of so many years, we have an increasingly educated population. And you have seen, as a result of the recent elections, that people in Afghanistan now believe in a democratic process and participate in a democratic process. What happened on April 5th, the day before we were celebrating Anne's life, was the most historic day in the history of Afghanistan. It was the first time that Afghanistan experienced such a day. It was the first time in the history of Afghanistan the president is alive. He was voting for his replacement. And the opposition and people who are running to replace him are alive and campaigning in Afghanistan. And people in Afghanistan are very hopeful that there will be a peaceful transition from this leadership, the current leadership, to the next leadership. People voted despite the threats, despite the week before that was completely chaotic across Afghanistan. And the participation, especially of women, was shocking to the international community. But that is today the spirit in Afghanistan. 2/3 of people in Afghanistan are 25 or younger. And so many people want change. We in Afghanistan are sick and tired of war. Everyone wants change. And the past 13 years have helped expose Afghans to what we didn't know for a long time. We have never been this exposed before. Millions and millions of people own cell phones, watch TV. They even watch the Afghan Star, which is the localized version of American Idol. People watch, there's a TV show, American TV show called Prison Break. It's dubbed in Afghanistan. Right now, one of the new ones that are viewed in Afghanistan is The House. There's a US. So all of this participate in the online world. And all of this is something that even when I was 11 years old, I couldn't even dream about. I don't want to take too long, but I will say one thing in honor of Anne. That is that just as we speak right now, there are more than 75 million girls throughout the world waiting for an opportunity to receive an education. 75 million girls who have never had the opportunities that you and I have enjoyed in our lifetime. And if things don't change, they will never have that. That's a lot of people in this world, 75 million people. That's more than twice the population of Afghanistan. And today, because our world is increasingly becoming smaller, it is our moral responsibility to do something to change their reality, to help them practice their most basic human rights. And Anne believed in that. She was able to get outside of the compound, the boundaries of U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan, and go to places so that she could help people. It's all of our responsibility. If we do our share, I don't understand how we, as young people who are more aware than ever before, who have information at our fingertips, who become aware of the problems and in matter of seconds, how we can live with ourselves without doing something to change the reality of those who don't have access. If you want to end poverty in the world, if you want to eradicate polio, or prevent HIV from spreading, we have to invest in educating those girls who don't have access to education right now. And for you all, because Anne was part of this community, I ask you that you do it in her honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shabana. So now we're going to do a brief Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free to just go to our two standing mics that are in the aisles. We ask that you keep your questions brief so Shabana has as much time as possible, and only one question per person, please.
Thank you very much for a very eloquent presentation. I feel like I know you, and I've only been here for an hour. So, my question is a delicate one, and I'm just wondering, I'm glad to hear about all the changes that we're not aware of in the news media here in the United States. My question in the back of my mind is, what role does Islam as a faith play in the situation of women having a difficult time advancing? I know this is something that might be an uncomfortable question, but I want to understand the culture that we're dealing with, because what happens, Americans see the world through their own eyes, is everything is like an American lens, and I want to see it through your eyes, because a lot of problems are historic and lasting many centuries, and it sounds like there's a rapid transformation of your culture taking place, which is very good, but I just was wondering, what role does Islam play in the difficulties women have in your country?
I think religion has historically been misused. In Afghanistan, in a place like Afghanistan, the problem is not Islam. The problem is culture and how Islam is misused. If you read about, I think a lot of these Abrahamic religions have, promote similar values: compassion, love, and respecting each other, and being helpful to your neighbors, and so on and so forth. In fact, in Islam, women and Muslim men and Muslim women are required to be educated. But what's preventing people in Afghanistan is not the religion, it's the way religion is practiced. And it's a very, I guess, a politicized version of Islam that people practice, one that is very manipulative. Let me give you an example of one of the students in my school. If I were to show you, unfortunately I don't have it right now, but if I were to show you the picture of her father, a guy who has long beard, turban, and I have actually done this. I go throughout the U.S. Presenting on Afghanistan and especially about girls' education. And I show the picture of this guy and ask people what are the words that that comes to their mind or they associate with this particular man. A lot of the answers that I get is traditional, religious, has no respect for women's rights, probably beats his wife, and on and on and on. And I'm not surprised because that's what people hear in the US. But that same man, who's the father of one of my students, today risks his life every single day to make his daughter's education possible. We admitted his daughter to my school 2.5 years ago. And a year and a half ago, when we had one of our breaks at SOLA, the daughter went to her village. The father picked her up at the airport. As they were driving to their home village, they missed being killed by a roadside bomb by a minute. As they were driving, they saw the bomb blast happening behind them, and they just thanked Allah for saving their life. But when he got home, he received a call, and the person said, "How come you're still alive? I was planning your funeral for this holiday. If you send your daughter back to school, we will try again." And this father, who's wearing a turban and has a long beard, could be considered either a terrorist or a Talib in the eyes of people outside of Afghanistan, said in response, "Kill me now if you wish, but I will not stop my daughter's future because of your backward ideas. And if it's in my fate that I will be killed by you, no one can change that. But my daughter is going back to school." She not only came back to SOLA, she was among 12 of our students last summer who came to the US on a full scholarship to attend school here. And that father is risking his life every day, even to this moment, to make his daughter's education possible. So for me, he's also a Muslim man. He's also a passionate advocate for his daughter's opportunities and education. And he's also someone who lives in a rural area in Afghanistan. You know, what dominates the picture of Islam and people from Afghanistan are our conservative, extremely conservative, less than 5%, who happen to be the Taliban. But the truth is that you have very conservative 5% people here too.
Absolutely.
Every country has that, right? Mm-hmm. The reason you can ignore or marginalize them is that they're not wearing those suicide vests and they don't blow themselves up in public places, right? So you can ignore them. But we have that problem. We are yet to figure out a way to stop that from happening. So for me, I don't know if I went a really longer way to answer your question, but it's really not Islam by principle. It's really how it has been practiced and how it has been used by some to gain power and to suppress people, and unfortunately that has become and I think it's lack of education. People are not as educated about either the religion they practice or just in general. So it's easy to manipulate people who are not educated.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I was just curious and wondering what your biggest challenges in running SOLA are, whether it be organizations having difficulties with you or logistically or financially. So I was wondering what really is like the hardest thing you deal with on a consistent basis with SOLA.
We started the school really from nothing. You know, the first challenge, often people think it might be security. It really is not. It's funding. Financially, it's an issue. But because it's the first boarding school for girls in Afghanistan. And the reason I have created it as a boarding school, there are several reasons. One, I wanted to give opportunities to girls from really rural areas to be able to access education, so we could bring them to Kabul and live in this environment. Second, Afghanistan is a country of diverse ethnic groups who speak different languages, and I wanted to bring people from across these ethnicities to live in the same school, same environment, who could come to respect and love each other and be agents of peace. And you know, really say enough. You know, we don't have to hate each other. So what if we happen to live in these different categories that have been created by human beings? We're all human, but we have these categories of either Afghan, American, Eastern, Western, Pashtun, Tajik, Uzbek, Sunni, Shia, Muslim, Christian, whatever. But you know, really look beyond that to respect and accept each other. And the third reason was a lot of girls in places like Afghanistan are helpers at home. You know, they help babysit, they help cook and clean and so on. So they rarely have time for themselves, but for them to live in a boarding school helps them reclaim all those hours that they would lose if they were to be at home, so that they can really focus on themselves. So by having them in a place like SOLA or a boarding school, we have to keep a very low profile. We live from the outside, there's no sign that says welcome to SOLA. From the outside, we look like residential houses. And obviously, as we plan to grow the school, it will have to change. But right now, also, one of the reasons we're having a difficult time expanding the school is funding. And then I go around trying to fundraise, outreach for the school. So hopefully, we'll be able to deal with it. But not if it were to be easy, you know, I wouldn't be doing it.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I loved your presentation. My question is, as college students, what can we do? And secondly, so I'm an engineering student. Do you see how technology can influence education in Afghanistan?
I started the school when I was a sophomore in college. I was running it from away, and when I went back to Afghanistan, I tried to expand it more. What I'm trying to say is that I became a head of school without having the experience. I became an educator without having taken any class in education or having the experience of running a boarding school. I didn't even go to one. But the first thing I did was I reached out to people in Middlebury town because I did not want to teach the Afghan public school curriculum. Because that's what really I don't like. It's outdated, it's really not helpful, it's not useful. So the first thing I did was I reached out to people in my college community and asked them to become Skype mentors. Today, every single student at SOLA has a Skype mentor, and they connect with them twice a week. So yes, I mean, our students have, and our Skype mentors are volunteers from across the US and other countries. I have a student who talks about wanting to become a businesswoman. Her mentor is a woman who worked for the hedge fund and is a successful businesswoman herself. We have a student who wants to be an engineer, so you're most welcome to become her mentor if you wish. I
would love to.
And so if these students, and if you look at it, they come from a society where they know their education comes second to their brothers often. They know that the society does not necessarily expect much of them. They're women, they will get married and so on and so forth, so why should they have any dreams to, become someone in life? But when they come to a school like SOLA and they have these Skype mentors who get online for them at odd times because of the time difference, all the way from the other side of the world, interested in her success, wants her to succeed, and listens to her, it's really empowering. It helps them gain more confidence and believe in themselves. So that was one of the first things I did. We also have we have a Johns Hopkins University graduate who's teaching at SOLA right now. We have several American and people from other countries as volunteer teachers who come to SOLA and teach between, for a semester or two. We're developing our curriculum. Sometimes we ask them to help us improve our curriculum. Our curriculum right now is really focusing on English, math, and sciences. But then when we have this, this particular person from who's a graduate of your school, she did her master's in public health and is off to medical school this fall. And in addition to teaching the science curriculum, she is teaching a class on public health and nutrition. We had a teacher, biology teacher from Seattle, who's an environmentalist, and he comes usually around March and teaches our student gardening. So we do all these different types of, we conduct all these different courses for our students to give them a really different experience. They also take a pledge when they sign up to become a student at SOLA to speak English at all times. We as a school are committed to treating everyone equally. Then we can't choose the language of one ethnic group to be the language of the school, so English is foreign to all of them. So it helps. And we are helping them prepare for educational opportunities outside of Afghanistan. So they signed a pledge, and the first 2-3 weeks are really comic. They take the pledge. It's a model that I've taken from Middlebury College. They take the pledge and they all of a sudden become these silent people. They don't really know how to, because it's not a requirement for them to speak English before they're admitted to SOLA. 2 years ago, I had a student who happened to speak 2 words of English before she signed the pledge, and that was good morning. I would see her at lunchtime, and with a big smile, she would look at me and say, good morning. And in the evening, I would be going home, and she would look at me and say, good morning again. And, a combination of working with the mentors and, the older students who speak English, and they help each other, and just really being forced to speak nothing but English, they improve very quickly. So it allows also for our Skype mentors and our volunteer teachers to work with our students, teach them in English. So yeah, technology does play a role. Internet is not that available. We unfortunately have to pay $2,000 a month to afford the kind of internet that has a strong enough bandwidth to connect our students on Skype with their mentors. So, there are some of these challenges that we face as well, but it's an important program for SOLA.
Thank you.
Now working. Join us for a short reception outside in the lobby and also in the room on your left. And we also encourage you to please stop by our information table in the front to find out more about how to donate to the Anne Smedinghoff Memorial Fund. Thank you so much for coming.